Comrades, today let us talk about Trump. It has been a long time since I last discussed him, so today I will explain. Honestly, recent developments with him have not been very good, because he is starting to resemble Biden more and more. Even more than Biden, in some ways. For example, during Biden's 463 days in office, he spent 577 days on vacation. That accounts for 40% of his presidency. Biden is more business-oriented. When he vacations, he does not just sunbathe on the beach. He either rides his bike aimlessly. In contrast, Trump is more into sports. He loves to play golf. For example, during his first term as president, he played golf a total of 42 times. And this time, he really let loose. He has only been in office for half a year. His golf appearances have already reached 62 times. That is 20 more than the same period of the previous term. He is basically either playing golf or on his way to play golf. It is a pity that Yoon Sang and Ab had originally practiced well to be caddies for him. In the end, they still missed the chance. Things have changed, and people are different. What is even more abstract is, Dengzi feels like he has enjoyed life enough. Can't he just enjoy it properly again? So he specifically had a custom golf cart made. He was also scared after being targeted for assassination. That is why Dengzi's golf cart is fully equipped with all the features. Bulletproof glass, bulletproof tires, bulletproof steel plates are all included. The rear of the vehicle even has additional steel plate protection. For such a small piece of junk, it costs nearly $200,000. It has been turned into an armored vehicle. Converting that is nearly 200,000 RMB. As we all know, 0 RMB can be exchanged for $0. So the exchange rate of RMB to USD is actually 1-to-1. Aside from playing basketball every now and then, he boasts about his family business during speeches, and he definitely does not hold back when it comes to making money. In his previous term, he was somewhat reserved and low-key. He was cautious about making money. He only mentioned his family business 32 times. But in this term, he has completely let loose. In just 6 months, they have already mentioned their family 57 times and boasted about their family business at least 20 times. As for using public office for personal gain, that is a must-do. They are going all out. You know, this president was bought. Buying positions is all about making money. It is all about cashing in. What kind of president are you to be trading stocks, manipulating the market, buying high and selling low, accepting bribes, and so on? What is all this nonsense? What is with all this joy? Of course, you want to make big money, but you can't ignore the small money either. Didn't Qatar previously gift the United States a luxury Boeing 747 aircraft? Officially, it was meant for the U.S. president to use for official duties, but then Trump, that shameless guy, said he wanted to create a presidential library and transfer the plane into his own name. As for where the presidential library is going to be located, there are currently 2 potential locations. One is Mar-a-Lago in Florida. The other is Trump Golf Resort. Either way, they are both properties owned by the Donald himself, because Donald thinks the taste in Qatar is not good enough. The planes sent over are too low class, so he is even considering modifying this Boeing 747 aircraft, a luxury version of the 747 for less than $300 million. They actually approved a whopping $950 million renovation budget. While others build a bridge to cross a river, he is digging a river under a bridge. Of course, directly approving renovation costs would not be appropriate. That would just make us look extravagant. The so-called need to make up for a small mistake. You just have to make another big mistake. Then no one will care about your small mistakes. So recently, Trump approved a nuclear missile upgrade project called the Sentinel program. The original budget for this project was $77.7 billion. But then they directly supercharged it. In one go, they increased the budget to $140 billion. Among them, there is an allocation of over $900 million. It is used for his Boeing 747 modification project. In other words, funding is allocated under the guise of a defense project to modify his private jet. No wonder he loves America so much. If it were me, I would love it too. Besides vacationing and throwing money around, like Biden, it is all about capitalistic benefits. Trump is increasingly resembling Biden in his language and logic. Since he became president over half a year ago, whether in interviews, meetings, or press conferences, his behavior has been particularly bizarre and abstract. For example, during the cabinet meeting on July 8th, the original topic was discussing the Texas flood, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and the Gaza war. And regarding the explosion in Iran, Trump told his ministers how he decorated this conference room. Look at the paintings on the wall. Did you see them? I picked the frames. I chose them myself. I really like this stuff, you know. Sometimes the frame is better than the painting itself. My taste is pretty good, right? And did you see that porcelain? I had it custom made. I polished it myself to make it shine. Defense Secretary Pitt and Secretary of State Liu are discussing. If Trump keeps going like this, They will probably start talking about ceiling lights soon. We are not in the renovation business, so we can't figure this out. So they plan to withdraw. Then Trump suddenly shouted, "Tiger, tiger, tiger," going all out for an attack. This completely stunned the officials who had come to the meeting. What the hell, is the enemy coming? Then Trump looked at the lights above and said, "Do you know, these lights are actually very important, whether you like it or not. But if you have seen Pearl Harbor or movies like Tora, you will notice scenes discussing war with castration usually feature this kind of lighting because it makes us look tense in a meeting. Lighting is very important. I specifically set up this kind of light. Of course, I feel that they are not really that great because this room of ours is very sacred. I do not think they would film a movie here. Moreover, their light has a small flaw. It is missing a decorative piece. Did you see the decorative piece above us? I specifically had someone install it. Doesn't that make our light look better? Look at our meeting room. I specifically painted it beige. Do you think it looks good? The only problem is, I am still hesitating whether to put gold leaf in the corners. Hey, since we are having a meeting together, why do not you tell me what you think? Oh right, we can actually vote in the cabinet. Voting will decide whether to gild the corners or not. This way, we appear more democratic. I have finished speaking. Who is in favor and who is against? Anyway, throughout the meeting, Trump's behavior was very strange. Also, in early July, a reporter asked Trump, "What is the next campaign promise you plan to fulfill for the American voters?" As a result, Trump then said that he canceled some regulations. For example, when you buy a house, there is a faucet in it, but no water comes out of the faucet because there is a throttle valve. I originally wanted to show off my beautiful hair, but I ended up standing under the shower for 20 minutes and still could not rinse off the soap, so I canceled that ridiculous regulation. However, I personally really like this slow dripping mode where water flows gradually, mainly because it saves water. Saving water means saving money. I even installed a flow restrictor on the toilet in my office. If it can save, then save it. Anyway, what he said completely baffled the reporters on site. What a mess this is. I am asking you, what policies are in place? You are just rambling on. What are you doing with this nonsense? And then on July 25th, when Trump met with von der Leyen, they were originally discussing immigration issues, but then Trump suddenly went off on a tangent. I want to say something to Europe, which is, I will not allow wind turbines to be built in America. They are destroying us. They are ruining our beautiful landscapes. Because wind turbines make whales feel bad, they can even go crazy. Because wind energy kills birds. This completely baffled Aunt Fung. What kind of nonsense is this? Recently, Dongzi said he reduced the drug prices by 1,500%. I know about reductions of 30% or 50%, even 100% self-sufficiency, but this is the first time I've heard of a 1,500% reduction, paying others to take it. Now that is a true mathematician. In short, Dong Wang is in public. What I am saying is completely off. Everyone thought Z was suddenly changing the topic while speaking. That might just be his way of speaking, or strategies for speeches, and so on. The underlying logic code is just like that. But over time, everyone notices, is there a possibility that when ZZ is speaking, they change the subject simply because they can't remember what they said before? Now they just lack the ability to tell a coherent story. They unconsciously change the subject. For example, Trump often boasts that he passed an IQ test. He got a perfect score and said the last 5 questions were very difficult and that Biden definitely could not answer them. But recently it was revealed that the test he took was not some so-called IQ test, but a test for early signs of dementia. Because the test he took, it is called the MoCA Montreal Cognitive Assessment, created by a neurologist, Dr. Nasruddin, in 1996. But the original intention behind this creation was not to measure IQ at all. It was to assess dementia. Dr. Nasruddin also specifically mentioned this in media interviews. This test is very easy for those without cognitive impairments. You absolutely must not treat it as an IQ test. If you think this is challenging, as if it is an IQ test, then your IQ might really need testing. Alright, now let us bring the question back to Dongzi. This old guy once said, the last 5 questions are very difficult. I bet Biden definitely can't answer that, etc. But if someone without symptoms of dementia can easily score full marks, then Trump thinks the questions are a bit difficult. Isn't he also getting there? After all, Biden was 78 when he took office, and cognitive impairment was not much of an issue then, but later, the problems became more significant. Now Trump is back in the palace at 79 years old. He is even older than Biden. He almost stumbled on the stairs just like Biden. I guess his IQ and physical condition are also lagging behind. So what does this tell us, comrades? People's understanding is increasingly problematic. Even Harry Siegel, a senior lecturer in psychology at Cornell University, recently emphasized in an interview with The Guardian that Trump shows potential signs of cognitive decline. He often goes off topic and is very incoherent when he speaks. And he also adds non-existent content to his memories. These are early symptoms of dementia. Regarding this matter, the U.S. government naturally cannot admit it. White House spokesperson Liz Houston said, "What a load of nonsense from so-called experts. This is just a conspiracy by leftists to smear us. Our president has experienced more in life than you have in meals. His mental acuity is unmatched. He is working tirelessly day and night to fight for the interests of the American people. And yet, you still slander him. What kind of damn experts in media are these? Hurry up and go back to school to improve your morals and legal knowledge." Anyway, nowadays, Trump is just like Biden, both suffering from age, poor health, and cognitive impairments, and are both caught in a storm of public opinion. Aside from these issues, the Democrats are becoming increasingly aggressive because once he returns to the White House, he promised to end political correctness and transgender policies. However, this has indeed become more and more outrageous. It has now escalated to the realm of culture. Politics and minors will face serious consequences. Under pressure, many similar medical institutions in the United States have stopped or suspended such services, but this move has also upset the Democrats. On August 1st, California took the lead in suing the Trump administration against the ban on medical personnel providing gender-affirming treatment services for transgender minors, and believing that this has caused a huge rift in the United States, is destroying the cultural core of America. Trump, you love division so much. Are you Shang-Yang? Subsequently, California's lawsuit received support from New York, Illinois, and 15 other Democratic states like Massachusetts. We must resist the tyranny of the thief who understands power. I want to see who can block the sky over America with one hand, whether it is hormones or surgical treatment. Trump must ensure the provision of gender transition services to minors. You have no right to deprive them of the right to choose their gender. And many experts and scholars, they also began to come out in support of the Democrats because they believe that gender-affirming treatment is actually saving lives. Some students may experience significant pressure, or they may question their gender identity. This can lead to suicidal tendencies, but if they transition directly, it is like being reborn. They won't have these problems anymore. These experts even cite classics and say some families ended up in tragedy simply because they disagreed with their child's gender transition and regretted their decision later. They regret their initial choice. So now, for the sake of the next generation, please support gender transition. California Attorney General Rob Bonta, who is responsible for drafting the lawsuit, stated in a press release that the thieves and their accomplices have been continuously attacking gender-affirming treatments, putting vulnerable teenagers in grave danger. Their health and lives are at risk. The government's ban on gender-affirming treatment is cruel and irresponsible. For the health of young people, gender affirmation must be allowed. Long live freedom. The strong pushback from the Democrats also made Trump realize a problem. If the Republicans lose next year's midterm elections, who knows what kind of trouble he is going to face. As the saying goes, what does it mean to be miserable? Some people are born seeing generals right from the start. In order to improve his chances in the midterm elections, that clever little guy, the smart king, thought about redistricting. He wanted to redraw the districts for big states like Texas, to reshape the legislative boundaries, add 5 more seats in the House of Representatives for the Republican Party. That way, our advantage in the midterm elections will be even greater. Texas Governor Abbott is a supporter of Trump. Since the king has given his orders, then this loyal minister will repay with his life. August 4th, Texas holds a legislative session. The matter of redistricting for voting. I am sure everyone is wondering right now, how can such a big issue as redistricting be so simple? It really is that simple. It is your country, so if you say it needs to be redrawn, it gets redrawn. In theory, that is true. Because Texas not only produces great barbecue chicken, but it is also the stronghold of the Republican Party. Republicans hold the majority in the State House. They are able to push for redistricting, but the Democrats are not foolish. If you redraw the districts, won't we lose? We definitely can't let you do that. You want to draw, right? Fine. We just won't participate. You can draw however you want. They are thinking about exploiting a bug, because if the district is redrawn, you have to vote. But voting requires a sufficient number of people. As the famous saying by West Coast economists goes, you need at least 30 years to pay off a bank loan. But robbing a bank only takes 10 years to pay off. So the Democrats collectively exploited the bug. Absentee. We will definitely lose if we vote. But if we do not vote, we will never lose. Because there are not enough people. The Republicans can't initiate the vote. As a result, the Republicans are getting desperate. They want to vote to arrest those absent lawmakers. They even issued them fines. They will be fined $500 for each day they are absent. Governor Abbott even threatened to fire them. And while Republicans and Democrats are causing chaos in California, California's Democratic future leader Newsom also took action. He directly stated, if Texas Republicans redraw the districts, then fine. He will redraw districts too. You guys can draw 5 more seats for yourselves. Then I will draw 5 more districts. Soon after, other Democratic governors expressed their opinions. New Yorkers are right. The Republican kids, if we draw fewer districts, we won't worry about you. Regarding your meanness, we are stronger than you. All right. Let us redraw the districts tomorrow. Let us see who wins big. Let us see who loses all their seats. Honestly, does have some intelligence. 3 Trumps are no match for Wang Yawu. Always fights with preparation. So on August 7th, he ordered a new round of census to find out if there are really more people in our red zone. It is still the blue district with more people because in the midterm elections, it is all about voter votes. When the voters of the 2 parties are highly solidified, redistricting happens. Whoever has more voters gets more votes. The more votes, the more resources, and the higher the chances of winning. The Supreme Leader ordered a census just to gather some data and see what is going on. Which side has more people? If there are more people, we will go against them. If there are fewer, forget it. And that old guy Trump is especially insistent not to count those illegal immigrants without status as part of the numbers, because they do not count as people. Checking on them is just a waste of resources. What Trump said actually involves 2 aspects. On one hand, he really does not see illegal immigrants as people. In his eyes, only those who can bring him value and have votes count as people. On the other hand, this also relates to government funding and the Republican Party's chances in the midterm elections. Because when the federal government allocates funds to state governments each year, it is based on population. A large state has more people, then the federal government will naturally allocate more funds for healthcare, education, and housing, in transportation and other areas as well. If there are fewer people, then naturally there will be less funding, and the demographic composition of the Democratic Party includes a large portion of illegal immigrants, excluding them. Then it makes sense to allocate less funding to blue states. Why do Democrats keep emphasizing that illegal immigrants are also people? Because counting one more person means more money. On the first day Biden took office in 2021, one of the key policies he pushed was to count every person living in the United States, including illegal immigrants, and on the first day Trump takes office in 2025, the directive being pushed is to cancel Biden's policy. Some people in America really are not considered people. It is worth noting that the United States conducts a census every 10 years. The next census was originally scheduled for 2030. I do not know if the current order for the census is in advance or if another one has been added. The Democratic lawmakers in Texas are still continuing their protests. However, they are currently in a fundraising stage because dozens of lawmakers are not showing up for work. They have to pay a $500 fine every day. Their wallets are already empty. Moreover, they are now staying in hotels, and they have to spend money on food and drinks. They are currently launching a fundraising campaign online. They hope that just people will help them donate some money for the children to continue protesting. However, they have managed to raise some money through fundraising. It should last for a few days. They are still continuing the protest. That is the current situation. As for what happens next, we can only wait and see. Alright, there is still a bit more to cover in this video. After discussing the situation within the United States, let us take a look at the diplomatic front. On July 30th, Young Ja in the White House Cabinet Room met with South Korea's Minister of Planning and Finance, Koo Yoon-cheol, and Minister of Industry, Commerce, Resources, Kim Jong-hwan, among others. Negotiation representatives from the South Korean government. They aim to finalize the tariffs on the same day. At first, the Korean representatives were very nervous because they all thought the other side was unreliable. They worried that the other side might make some physical demands. The first words after the meeting were, Trump directly asked a question. It is not a question a carbon-based life form would think of. He asked, how has General Kim been doing lately? I miss him, General. That statement just fried the CPU of the South Korean representative. They might have already rehearsed it over 10,000 times in their minds. They thought of every irrelevant thing Trump might say. They considered every possible question. But they never expected that his first sentence would drop a nuclear bomb. It is like playing du Diju. He comes up and immediately throws out an unbeatable move. Who can handle that? After saying the first thing in the negotiation, the Korean side has already lost. Finally, according to the agreement reached between South Korea and the U.S. will impose a 15% tariff on South Korea. At the same time, South Korea is not allowed to impose tariffs on the U.S. South Korea will invest $350 billion in the United States. As for which sectors the money will be invested in, the U.S. side will decide the usage. South Korea has completely lost. August 6th, Trump once again treated the Japanese like dogs. In July, both Japan and the U.S. reached a trade agreement. The overall tariff rate imposed by the U.S. on Japan is 15%. Japan invests $550 billion in the United States. As for the profits, it is 91-9. The U.S. gets 90%, Japan 10%. This is definitely a treasonous agreement. Japan still signed it. As a result, on August 6th, Japan's Minister of Economic Revitalization, Akizawa Ryo, visits the U.S. During the signing, he discovers, cute, the traitorous agreement. And the Americans actually tampered with the content. The Americans changed the total tax rate from 15% to the current rate plus 15%. The total tax rate means the number is fixed, while the current rate plus 15%. This means America is again building on tariffs. Another 15% tariff has been added. The agreement was set. I can't believe they betrayed their allies and changed it. What a joke. Are they treating the Japanese like dogs? Ryo Akizawa angrily rebuked the reporters. The local gang is so unreliable. He demanded an explanation from the Americans and implement the consensus reached by both parties. So why does this problem occur? The reason is simple. It is because the United States is shameless. Japan thought the total tax rate was 15%, which means all goods are taxed at 15%. If the tax rate is less than 15%, they increase the tax. If it exceeds 15%, they cut the tax. What the United States calls a 15% tariff means that it is an additional 15% on top of the existing rate. For example, initially, the U.S. imposed a 25% tariff on Japanese cars. So adding 15% makes it 40%. This action can't be called shameless. It is simply shameless. Colonies are not treated this way, and to think they can play word games in such a serious diplomatic setting, impressive my understanding. As for the agreement with the EU, it has also been reached because the understanding king threatened that, if the EU does not come to a conclusion by August 7th, then most likely directly raise the tariff to 35%. What the EU is still thinking about compromising to halve the rate. Keep the tariff at 17.5%. Do you think you are Lisi so fond of compromise? Just this number. Otherwise, just wait to die. In the end, there was no choice. The US and EU reached an agreement. The US included tariffs on EU cars, and most EU goods are subject to a 15% tariff. And within 3 years, there will be US energy purchases totaling $750 billion and investments of $600 billion. Of course, the investment part is naturally decided by the US, and they even threaten specifically that if the EU is too petty, investment is a matter for private enterprises, they can't control it, then the US will impose a 35% tariff on the EU again. In short, it is about kneeling to Trump. There really is no good outcome, and this guy has a problem with his head. He might want to modify the signed agreement, and there is not seriously harming national interests. We absolutely can't kneel to the United States. The more respect you give him, the more he will take advantage. I am sure that even if they have already signed agreements with the EU and South Korea, Trump would still find reasons to renegotiate the deal, making them continue to concede more benefits. Alright, about to follow up. What will Trump demand from his allies in the agreement? We can only wait and see what happens next. That is all for this video. If you like it, please help by liking and subscribing. See you in the next episode. Maybe one day I will surprise you